of
Oh, yeah.
business for.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Phil. I'm glad you remember. Let's see. Let me run down here. Justin. Chris De Silva.
Yes.
Thank you. Greg.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Hillary. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens. Rob Rouleau.
Yes.
Jennifer. Wayne. I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew. I didn't see Matt's name up there. Nick. Ken.
What am I saying yes to, Jerry?
You're saying that you're actually there and I can see you.
All right, good. Just want to make sure.
And then the $2 million we just talked about, but that's okay. We'll explain it later.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Ken. I knew I could count on you. Josh.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see, that's all the voting members.
Nick's just joined.
Oh, okay. Nick, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, good boy. All right, let me read the governor's notes and then we'll kick off the agenda. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, signed into law by Governor Healy on March 29, 2023, several pandemic-related relief provisions suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, were further extended until March 31st, 2025. All members of the public are invited to join the meeting virtually, either by computer or phone. If joining virtually, video and audio will be turned off for public participants unless otherwise stipulated by the chair. There will be time for questions for the public at the end of the formal meeting. If a member of the public wishes to speak, please raise your hand in the meeting room or on your computer, and when called upon, please state your name for the meeting minutes. Phil, I give it to you, but I think the first thing on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes from, when was the last one? March 25th.
Yeah.
So everybody has seen the meeting minutes of March 25th. I know Phil sent them out 10 days ago, maybe. I don't remember exactly. I sent them out again, I think late last week. Are there any questions, edits, or changes that anybody has noted and thinks we need to make? If not, via roll call, I'll go for approval. I suppose I really should have a motion for that too, shouldn't I?
I can do that if you want. I can make a motion that we accept the minutes of March 25th, 2024.
Thank you, Mary. A second on that?
Second.
Perfect, thank you. All right, via roll call. Justin? Chris?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Hillary? Brian?
Yes.
Mike Stevens? Rob?
Yes.
Jennifer? Wayne? I'm a yes. Mark Anderson?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
You, Matthew? I didn't see him come in. Nick?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
That's another $2 million. Thanks, Ken. And Josh?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, Phil, it's all yours.
Thank you, guys. So first agenda item to go over schedule update. So when we last met on March 25th, we talked about slightly pushing the upcoming MSBA submission. So that's the design development submission that's coming up very soon, and then the 60% construction document submission, and then the 90% construction document submission. So the dates here on the left of the slide are those updated dates. So we're going to meet with you all on May 20th to seek your approval to submit the design development submission to MSBA. And then July 29th would be the building committee meeting to approve submitting the 60% construction document submission. And then October 28th for the 90% construction document submission to MSBA. And then for a snapshot of the design development tasks. So we had our since we last met as a committee, we had our cost estimate reconciliation process occur. We sent you all the 2 finalized estimates along with the estimate analysis, and we'll present that content later on in the presentation. We got our April 29th meeting right now, and then next item task-wise is to complete the early site package bid docs. I'm showing May 10th here. That's probably a week or 2 aggressive, or maybe even a little bit more aggressive, but ultimately the plan will be to have those bid docs ready and be available to bidders so we can have the work start during the summer months. And then meet with you all on May 20th, get your approval to submit the design development submission to MSBA, and then the following day submit it to MSBA, and then the process of MSBA doing their 2-week review, and then they send us their comments, and we are required to put together a response to them. So that's the upcoming schedule, and Mary brought up the community forum. We've been slating May 13th for that. We'll talk about that at the end of the presentation, but in terms of kind of technical tasks ahead of us, that's that schedule update. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Next agenda item, budget update. So since we last met on March 25th, just 2 invoices that were plugged into the project financials. You have Collier's March invoice in the amount of $28,685.80. And then Mount Vernon Group's April invoice in the amount of $334,500, totaling $363,185.80. And then in terms of a total project budget snapshot, I'm highlighting the OPM budget line item showing that paid amount going up to the $115K, and then the unpaid amount decreasing to the $2,078,000. And then in the A&E fee budget line item, that paid to date going up to the $1,338,000, unpaid going down to that $4.8 million. And then I'm highlighting the hazmat budget line item as well as the geotech budget line item, because the proposals we'll be presenting later on in the presentation are captured in those 2 budget blocks. And then just the remainder of the total project budget, you have the $66.9 million construction budget, and then the remainder of the soft costs, miscellaneous project costs, FF&E and contingency, with the total project budget that was approved by the community of $83.6 million. And then total paid to date, the $2,327,000 approximately. Any questions on the budget update? Okay. Next agenda item is MVG's geotechnical consulting proposal review and vote. So again, this was a scope that was captured in the geotechnical budget, but ultimately the proposal fee wise is a total fee of $219,763.50. That includes Mount Vernon Group's 10% markup. A portion of that fee is lump sum, so they get paid for those services via a lump sum payment, if you will, and that lump sum amount within that $219,000 fee is the $89,875.50, and then the remainder of that $219,000 fee would be T&M services, and that's $129,888. And as I step through these scopes, I'll explain kind of which ones go into that lump sum bucket, which ones are kind of the T&M bucket. So scope of services, you have 19 borings, 25 test pits, 2 groundwater observation wells and a couple of the borings, water infiltration testing for stormwater design, lab testing, geotech report, putting together the bid specs, and review and commenting on foundation design. So all that scope is part of that lump sum $89,000 fee. So that's them being a consultant from Mount Vernon Group, kind of continuing their geotech consulting services from Mount Vernon Group. And that's all effort that needs to happen as we kind of approach the bidding process. These last 2 bullet points are the construction administrative side of things that will be kind of on that T&M side of things. So submittal and RFI review and comment during construction, and then soil observation during excavation activities. So that can be excavation for the building foundation, the proposed building foundation, excavation for stormwater structures, excavation for roadways, et cetera, et cetera. You know, whenever we're doing excavation on site and we think there's a need to have the geotech engineer on site to observe the native soil in the event there's concerns about unsuitable soils, et cetera, that's that T&M effort. And then Mary, you got a question? Or,
Yeah, it was, and it's not knowing enough about the geothermal, but why aren't they doing the full 70 borings now? Why are they just doing part of it? Because they talk about how, you know, later on, like I'm thinking if we do some of them in January, they talk about the bad weather and how it could add cost or the cost going up. I don't quite understand the piecemeal.
No, so the way the geotech boring effort works is you do X amount during the feasibility study. So that happened, you know, a year or two ago. And then once you have the project approved at the end of the feasibility study, you execute one of these ad service proposals and they further advance the geotechnical boring effort. And that's what this proposal is. So this proposal completes the subsurface exploration investigation. Chris, you want to add to that response?
Yeah, I think, Mary, you may be a little confused. So these are geotechnical borings to determine the soil makeup, the extent of ledge and unsuitable.
Okay.
The geothermal borings, right, the ground source heat pump, those will be installed in their totality as part of the early site package.
Okay, all right. That's, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, Mary.
No, that's okay. Like I say,
yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, totally.
These
Yeah,
are all
thank you.
structural. The other ones are all HVAC.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
And then the next slide here, I'm just zooming into the geotech budget block. So way back when we created this total project budget to seek Maynard's approval on it, we captured a $300K budget for this geotechnical effort. So within this $300K geotechnical budget, we've already executed an amendment with Mount Vernon Group for the $96,250, and that was that geothermal testing through their consultant CDM Smith. So that leaves us with approximately, you know, $204K remaining. And so I'm showing here the lump sum portion of that $89,875. And then the remainder of this $300K budget, which is that $113,874, would go towards that T&M geotech effort. And we don't anticipate we're going to need to spend all that $113K, but the point of this budget line item is for that effort. So I'll just go back to this slide. Any questions on this? So we'll just seek a motion to approve this from a committee member.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask for. I didn't, Nick has a
Nick
hand up.
has-
Yeah. Sorry. The T&M is things that might come up in the future, right? We're going for just the 89 right now with the idea that we would establish a price point for the T&M services coming in the next whatever year. But we're not spending the full 219 right now.
Right. So we're going to execute an amendment from Mount Vernon Group that is in the amount of $219,763.50.
Mm-hmm.
Where we got part of that is this lump sum amount of $89,875, and the remainder of that proposal will be that T&M work. In that proposal, they have their rates that kind of, you know, those are the rates that we're going to be paying this T&M work off of. And we will be utilizing them during construction administration. They will be reviewing submittals. They will be on site observing soils. So this proposal is going to be the finalized proposal that we execute with the design team to execute both the lump sum part of it and the T&M part of it. This is locking us into that effort. But at the end of this project, we would not have spent this $219,000.
Gotcha.
Any other question? Good question, Nick. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that, Phil. I don't see any other hands up. I would entertain a motion for the MVG Geotechnical Consulting ad service proposal in the amount of $219,763.50.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Would I have a second on that?
I'll second. This is Nick.
Second. Thank you, Nick. Via roll call, Justin. Justin's on. Chris.
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
yes,
Hillary, and see her, Brian,
Yes.
Mike Stevens, Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer, no, Wayne, no, I'm a yes, Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Anthony,
yes,
Matthew.
Yes.
Ah, good, perfect. Thanks, Matt. Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
That's all the voting members, unanimous. Thank you. Go
Thank you,
ahead,
guys.
Phil. Welcome.
So next agenda item is Mount Vernon Group's environmental consulting proposal review. So this is their Lord environmental consultant. They're the consultant that performed the phase 1 environmental site assessment a couple of years ago now, I believe, or a year or so ago. They also did a phase 2 environmental site assessment when we did some shallow borings over at the back field to confirm we didn't have any concerns with any chemicals or urban fill. So this scope is they were on site during the boring exploration, and they grabbed some soil samples just to kind of continue that effort of having some assurity that there wasn't any concerns with urban fill or any chemicals to that nature. So they were on site dealing with that soil investigation. They grabbed some soil samples, went through the lab testing analysis, and produced the finalized report. The lump sum with Mount Vernon Group's 10% markup is the $11,000. And here just showing a snapshot of where this scope is captured in the budget. So it's out of the, it's out of the 200K hazardous material budget block. I have it highlighted here, this $11,000. These next two line items here, I'll present on the next slides. But this $11,000 effort is out of this 200K hazardous material budget line item. Any questions on that? No, Josh?
Yeah, just real quick, I don't have any questions on the proposal itself. You're probably already aware, but Ralph from Lord just reached out and said that they were going through acquisition right now with another company. So just for paperwork purposes, you may want to check what their legal name is going to be. This just last 48 hours, I found out. So
Okay, Chris, you want to take a look into that, please?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll follow up.
Seems to be a lot of that happening these days.
absolutely, the same team is staying on, Chris. So anybody
Yeah.
you've been working with, they're sticking around. It's just a business move. So
Yeah, not uncommon, Josh.
Any questions? I'm not seeing any hands up or anybody screaming and yelling. So I would entertain a motion for MVG's environmental consulting ad service proposal in the amount of $11,000.
so moved,
Thank you, Mary. Have a second?
Second,
Who was that, Chris?
yeah.
All right, thank you. You're so quiet there, Chris, and so bashful.
I'm wicked
Wasn't
shy.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure it was you. Thank you. All right, roll call on the $11,000 approval. Justin, Chris,
Yes.
thank you. Greg,
Yes.
Mary,
yes,
Hillary, Brian,
Yes.
Mike Stevens, Rob,
Yes.
Jennifer, Wayne, I'm a yes. Excuse me, Mark Anderson,
yes,
Anthony,
yes,
Matthew,
yes,
Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh.
yes.
Thank you. That's it. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, guys. And then
You're welcome.
last proposal to review and vote on is the hazardous material consulting proposal. So the fee amount on this one, similar to the geotech, a portion of it's going to be the lump sum, and then a portion will be T&M work. Total fee amount is $99,000. That includes Mount Vernon Group's 10% markup. The lump sum, a portion of that is $28,600, and the T&M portion is the remaining 70,400. And I'll step through what goes to what bucket when I go through the scope of services here. So what this entails is additional sampling of interior building materials, as well as the exterior envelope, so roofing material, exterior wall, and foundation. Air testing in the building, producing a final report on all that additional sampling and testing, and then working with Mount Vernon Group and creating the bid specs for the asbestos abatement scope, reviewing and commenting on any bidder RFIs. So those bullet points are part of that lump sum 28,600. And then these remainder are part of the T&M work. So review and comment on submittals and RFIs during abatement, submit abatement work plan to DEP once we get going with the abatement effort, monitor the abatement work and perform required testing for clearances, etc., and then provide daily logs plus a final report. We got a few hands up. Nick?
Is there any, I don't know if it would be MSBA or other agency, DEP or something. Do we have to do some sort of like airborne station testing around the site while we do this stuff? Or is this the kind of thing, since it's in a building, we can do it, bag it inside? We don't have to have some sort of, I don't know. I've seen stations before that are like air sampling stations. It seems like a lot for us to have to do, but I just didn't know. And would that be included, I guess, if that is in this proposal?
Yeah,
It-
I and Chris, you want to jump in or?
Yeah, it typically is, Nick. During the abatement and demo, they will perform airborne testing in and outside the building, just to make sure that all the levels are low and the contractor's abiding by, any of the air quality measures that need to take place. So.
Josh?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you got this covered somewhere from a money standpoint. So I'm assuming, well, I guess it's a question. I shouldn't assume that this includes some level of destructive testing. I see the roof cut, any interior destructive, but what I really wanted to ask was whether or not these funds will cover the restoration, because I would assume that these the roof test cuts and any interior destructive testing would be done, and that in places in which we would want it restored. Obviously, the roof needs to be, but any interior spaces.
Yes,
Yeah.
this proposal covers that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Mark?
Yeah, so Josh beat me to the punch on the destructive testing question, so that one's covered. Is this all just stuff we can access easily, or are we doing any investigative testing where we're pulling a panel off and seeing what material's behind it, anything like that?
So,
Great.
Mark, they will typically, they'll do a number of things. They may pull a brick out to see what's behind it, any mastic between the, in the cavity, they'll replace it. They will have a backhoe. They'll do a little excavation along the exterior wall, see if there's any mastic on the foundations, things like that. But UEC is pretty good about repairing anything that's exposed to occupants of the building, et cetera. And they will typically select areas that are not exposed if they can't get back at it. So.
Got it. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mary?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that some of this sampling and testing and that is going to be done when the building is still open and the kids are still in there? Or is
Yes,
it-
yes. They'll typically arrange for testing to be in unoccupied areas or after school hours.
Okay, because Josh will remember, and Mark will too, we spent $660,000, I think, a number of years ago for a big asbestos issue that came up at Green Meadow. And it really makes me nervous that we're going to be doing any exposing of any potential additional asbestos while the kids are in the school building. Am I over worried, Josh, or?
So Amar, this is his bread and butter. He works in schools all the time. He's actually the gentleman who helped us on that, helped us recover from that situation, Mary. So he understands the sensitivity, and I would be willing to bet, as Chris said, that he's going to prefer to do this when there aren't kids in the building anyways. He'll probably coordinate for a day off somewhere, or a holiday or a weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mary, the cost implications of not doing this, and this is part of our communication when we talk to the community, right? The cost implications of not doing this and opening ourselves up to the risk of finding things we didn't expect during construction is too great. We have to do this testing. It's a standard part of this process. and we just need to make sure that we articulate that.
Okay, all right. Like I say, I'm overly sensitive because of, yeah, the concern of parents understandably when we went through this, so. all right.
Understood.
Thank you.
Chris and Phil, just real quick, I was going to mention, Amar is notorious for including a massive number for damp proofing. So he'll double check the foundation, but whether he finds something or not, he's going to put a massive number in there to cover himself. Just for what it's worth, we oftentimes will push back a bit on that. In my last 6 projects, we haven't spent even 5% of the number that he's carried on each of those for damp proofing. So it doesn't really matter for everyone else. It's just a number. It'll fit within our budget, but oftentimes the project team looks at it and they're scratching their head. So just an FYI.
Yeah, noted. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, Josh, I mean, you've worked with Lamar, the guys, this is his bread and butter, it's his business. The past couple jobs I've worked on, he's been conservative, but not overly to the point. You know, his goal and job is to protect the owner from those unknowns, right? And schools built back when there's too many unknowns. So, you know, things like the mastic, transite pipe that may have been abandoned underground, things like that. My experience has been Amar's done a good job at protecting the owner's interest in the long run.
Yep, absolutely.
Any additional questions, comments, concerns at this moment on this one?
One other, so I just
Oh, go
want to
ahead.
highlight,
Yep.
so, yeah, the budget block, so this is again, the 200K hazmat budget block. So I'm showing here, highlighted the top row here, 28,600. That's that lump sum portion of the proposal. And then the remainder left of this 200K budget is 160K. So that would go towards any of the T&M effort relative to having a hygienist on site during abatement activity, reviewing submittals and RFIs, and so on and so on.
So I would, at this moment, entertain, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion for MVG's hazardous material consulting ad service proposal in the total amount of $99,000.
So moved.
That was that Mark or Matt?
Was Mark.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Do I have a second?
I can second.
All right, good. Thank you, Mary. By roll call. Justin? Yeah. Chris?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Hillary? Brian? Did Brian step away? Mike Stevens? Rob?
Yes.
Thank you. Jennifer? Wayne? I am a yes. Mark Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yes.
Matthew?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Did Brian come back? I didn't hear him. Okay, roll call complete. Passes.
Great, thank you, guys. Next agenda item is going through the DD cost estimate. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share this other screen. To that.
I came back, Jerry. I don't know where I went. My answer is yes to that, by the way.
Can folks
Thank
see
you.
the estimate analysis, or are you still seeing the PowerPoint?
No, you got it, Phil.
Estimate.
That's
You got it. Okay.
Yeah, you're showing
So-
it, Phil.
So on Friday, I sent to you all the 2 finalized estimates that the 2 estimators created, plus this estimate analysis document. So I'll kind of quickly step through the layout of this document, and then we'll get into the numbers. So the initial part of the process is the design team gets their drawings and specs over to the 2 estimators. So Mount Vernon Group has 1 estimator. The owner has 1 estimator. So we got AM Fogarty, and then we got Fennessy. The 2 of them produce a unreconciled estimate, first pass at it. And then we have a reconciliation meeting between OPM design team, 2 estimators, and go through every scope of work and produce the finalized estimates. So columns A1, B1, C1, and C2 are all relative to numbers of the unreconciled estimates before the reconciliation meeting. So you got AM Fogarty column, you got the Fennessy column, you got the differences between each of the scopes costs, and then you got what we're using as kind of the reconciled average, if you will, at each scope of work. And then the columns A, B, C, and D are the revised reconciled estimates. So again, AM Fogarty, Fennessy, the difference column, and then that reconciled estimate. That's the estimate we're saying that's where we stand estimate wise. So this first page covers the scopes of work associated with the phase 1 site package. And then these next 3 pages cover the phase 2 building and site package. So just to go back to this one. So besides kind of the construction activities and the costs associated with those scopes, you then have the markups. So you have general contractor markups, you have design contingency, because there's more design remaining. So you put a contingency percentage into there for any things not captured yet in the documents. And then you have escalation to get up to bid time. So after the construction costs and those markups, you have the finalized numbers. So right now, our reconciled estimate for the early site package is this $5.685 million figure. And then you got the phase 2 building and site package, again, unreconciled data, then the finalized reconciled data, and column D being kind of our reconciled estimate. And so you got the building costs and then site costs. You got those markups I was speaking about, design contingency, general contractor markups, and the escalation to get out the bid time. So when you add the phase 1 early site package reconciled number to our reconciled estimate for the phase 2 building and site package, we're at a reconciled estimate right now of $66,774,000. That's approximately $125K under our $66.9 million budget. So it's fantastic news. I can tell you from experience, typically speaking, this is not the news I'm giving to building committees during the DD phase, during the CD phase. Estimators stay conservative. They stay conservative. We have to choose VE items and so on and so on. So this is great news. And then part of the estimate process we do, and you might remember this from the schematic design phase a year or so ago, we have some scopes of work that were kind of labeled as alternates. So they're not captured right now in this $66.7 million reconciled number, but we wanted them priced out. So we have 5 alternate scopes here. I'll just run through them. So adding a pickleball court, that's a carryover from the schematic design phase. Add the structure for a future PV canopy on the site. Add a cell phone booster system within the building. Slope granite curbs in lieu of bituminous concrete curbs out front of the building. And then alternate playground location. So that's going to be what we talk about later on in the presentation, but ultimately moving the playground. And then you have the group of VE items. So they're scopes of work that aren't going to take away from the educational program and educational experience of the students and staff, but they're scopes of work that, you know, we can isolate, get values to, and present to you all, and kind of see if we are in a scenario down the road in design, if we have to start selecting VE scopes, here's a starter list. And we can kind of also go back to the estimators and see if there's more scopes we can look at. And a lot of these are carried over from the schematic design. Eliminate current wall at the cafeteria windows towards the south facade of the proposed building. Adjust retaining wall scopes through grading, material selection. We're not seeing anything there yet, but that was something we carried over from the schematic design effort. Changing windows from aluminum to fiberglass, that actually happened. Back once we were in schematic design, and the design team was thinking about the stretch energy code, the energy modeling associated with that, and the better R value with these fiberglass windows. That's a design decision that was already made. And then we got remove site furnishings from GC scope, reduce planting scope by 50%. We did do that. This was a VE line item that was accepted by the building committee back during schematic design. So this 436K reconciled credit, that's already accounted for in this reconciled estimate. Reduce toil wainscot height from 6 feet to 4 feet. Again, just capturing the value to that, but not associated in the base scope number yet. Synthetic rubber mulch in lieu of poured rubber. We're not sure we're in favor of that, but we wanted to kind of see what the number was. Reduce playground area by 15%. Reduce playground equipment by 25%. Early site package for ledge, so we're going to be doing that. Utilize mobile speech reinforcement in lieu of a fixed system. Remove the exterior basketball court. Change feeders from copper to aluminum. This credit is captured in the base scope. This was accepted. And these last two are new. These aren't carried over from schematic design. Change cubbies to lockers. So Chris, this number is associated with just pre-K to K, right? I believe.
K to 3. We're keeping
Oh, yes, I'm
cubbies
sorry.
in the
Yeah,
pre-K.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. And then change where we have terrazzo flooring, change it to resilient flooring. So that is all the content of the estimate process. We're under budget. It's awesome news. Are there any questions? Josh.
Yeah, I had one quick question. I took a look at it over the weekend, but I didn't look at this. So the 5.9 delta between the two estimators, what was, without going into great detail, what were they varied on? Because it's a pretty good number.
When you say 5.9, where are you looking?
So the difference between AM Fogarty and Fennessy.
Yeah, so right now between the two of them, they're 830K off from each other out of a $66.7 million.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
project.
was looking at the left-hand side, the 66 to 72.
So
Oh,
yeah,
so
so this is all unreconciled.
I got you. I got it. Yep,
Yep.
just a different format than I'm used to. Thank you.
Yep. Mary?
Yeah, so this is strictly an estimate, right? For instance, so at some point, or when we get to the finality of picking maybe one or the other company to actually do the design development, we'll go line by line to make sure that, like, for instance, I found 41 vape detectors. Do we need 41 vape detectors in a pre-K through 3 school? So are we going to be going, or is somebody going to be going line by line to make sure that every single item is actually necessary?
Yeah, so that's the process I was referring to in terms of the estimate reconciliation. So that's what you go scope by scope.
Okay.
And Chris, I don't know if you want to speak to Mary's question.
Yeah. So Mary, the vape detectors would not be required in an elementary school of this nature. That's probably a leftover. And we're going to kind of clarify that as we go forward more and more. Like our 60% will be more information, more detailed, and then the 90%. But what's ultimately going to happen, even if it's in this estimate, it's not on the drawings, so that would not get bid by the contractor.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're going to really go through a fine-tooth comb. And
Yep.
There's been a lot of conversation, for instance, about the locking systems, and I think it was like $1,400 a piece or something. But there was a question mark on one, like it was sort of like, what kind are we going to get? So I just want to, I figured that was the case. Just wanted to verbalize it. So
yeah. So right now in design development, it's a continuation of schematic where we know what the systems are going to be. We're starting to really identify it. And then as we go from here forward, then we're getting into the depth of the detail and making sure that, yes, this is what we want. No, this is what we don't want. There are a few more meetings that we're going to have with the administration team, which I'll talk about. So we'll be clarifying a lot of these things as well. We'll continue to do that.
perfect. Thank you.
Welcome.
So
Brian?
before we go on,
Nope.
Phil, I just want to follow up on Mary there. So
Yep.
Mary, the step that you're talking about is absolutely vital. I think as Chris alluded to there, I just want to make it clear. It's part of the actual design process, not the cost estimating process, right? The cost estimating process is a step to do a reality check at our milestones during the design to say, have we added scope? Have we lost scope? Are we way over budget, under budget? That's all this step is. The piece where we go through and say, do we need this many widgets and that many other things? That all happens as we review the design submittals themselves, not necessarily the cost estimate.
Perfect. Thank you.
Brian?
Chris, yeah, did somebody, so one of the items on the proposed VE items was cubbies to lockers,
Yes.
which I don't think came from us.
It did not, no.
It did
No,
not. So that's not
no, we
something we're
just-
necessarily in favor of, but we'll talk about that at a later date when we do the line item thing that I think Mark just talked about.
Well, no, so, I mean, so we chose that scope because it's an easily isolated scope and it's, you
Okay,
know, it's a scope that can be priced up pretty quickly.
okay.
But by no means does that need to be accepted as a scope that we.
And we're not
VE out.
doing that tonight anyway.
No, yeah, so I mean, because we have a reconciled budget that, estimate that's under our budget, so we do
So
not
we're-
need to be
I
accepting
got
any
it.
items right now. Yep,
Perfect. Thank you.
but
Can I,
go ahead, Rob.
can I ask the same question in regards? You said something about equipment, about playground equipment, a reduction like 25%. Can you just explain that a little bit to me too at the same thought process?
The same thing, just easily isolated scope and cost. We
Okay.
saw a total dollar amount in the playground equipment that seemed to be a dollar amount that could be cut away on a little bit and not be drastically concerning. But again, doesn't need to be accepted.
Got it.
But that's all.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
Rob, Brian, just to put your mind at ease, like I just did this for a mayor. They didn't want me to say which community, a large city. And you know, all you're basically doing, like I had no idea what I'm looking at. I don't know what the principal or the superintendent wants. I reviewed everything. I gave them a list of like 200 things that they could cut back on if they wanted to, and then it's up to them. It's the same thing that these folks are doing here. They're just throwing stuff against the wall that is easily carved out, and then the user makes a decision as to whether or not they like them or don't.
Okay,
Got it.
that
Thank
helps.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
And I'll just kind of similar vein, if you will, in terms of the alternate list. So right now, we don't need to vote on the alternates that we're going to have at bid time, nor the sequence of them. But as we get close to that point in the process, we will need to get your vote on what do we want to carry for alternates and what sequence do we want them in, because you got to take them in order. You can't take two before you take one. You can't take three before you take one and two. And so we'll cross that bridge as we get further on in design, but that's the background to the alternates.
Got it. Thanks. Perfect.
Okay, any more questions on the DD cost estimate? Again, great news. Shows that the estimators are seeing that the market is getting a little bit better on these bigger size projects. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this screen and I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint. And then we got the design update. Chris, you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks. So we're going to talk about the playground location move and review. I have our landscape architect and our civil engineer. They're on board. They'll go and take you through the process. I just want to kind of step back. So we started out with a design that was the most efficient. It responded to the various stakeholder input, building committee, school department. You know, the community forums had a lot to say about the logistics of play areas, the pedestrian paths, etc. We heard from Rob, Karen, and the staff that there's some concerns about daily operational logistics, getting the kids to and from the play areas in a timely fashion, especially if maybe there's some inclement weather or there's some, you know, injury concerns with kids that need to see the nurse, etc. So we took that under consideration, and we were asked to explore options for the relocated playground close to the building. So we did that. Next slide, Phil.
Yep.
And we came up with a couple of pencil sketches. And I'll turn it over to Lynn from Studio 2112. She's our landscape architect. Her and her team have kind of gone through this along with our civil engineer to work out the logistics. come up with some solutions that work. As you remember, we needed to find things that we knew would work. And Lynn, why don't you
Right.
walk them through it?
Thanks, Chris. So these are the two sketches that we presented and reviewed with a smaller group and kind of talked our way through. So in option A, I'll start here. What we did is we moved the playground to, and Phil, you're going to have to, yeah, thank you. Moved it across the bus loop to the area where we previously had parking. So that actually solves the issue with having it. One of the desires it was having the playground for K through 3 co-located with the actual play fields. So this was able to achieve that. It's still a very good sized playground. And we were able to, we can talk about the circulation there a bit, but this feels very comfortable and very safe for us. It has a visual sight line from the main entry of the building and solves the concern about having that K through 3 play area be closer to the circulation for students coming in and out. The pre-K play area stayed in the same location because it works very well with the pre-K location for the children. What we did do, because we lost parking by moving the K through 3 play area in that area, we added a parking lot, visitor exploration of, you know, how this actually functions programmatically, but we added a parking lot to this area so that we are able to still, in this scenario, we lost some parking. We've actually improved upon that, I'll tell everyone. But what this did, it changed the actual vehicular circulation a bit from what we had before. Our previous scheme was very directional. It was very clean. This is also clean, but it changes certain areas to be two-way, where previously many of these areas were one-way. What we do want to point out to everyone here is that the children during recess, during the school day, will be coming out to this main plaza. They will cross a bus loop that has no activity during the day. We are proposing a gate there perfectly. Thank you, Phil. That is a gate that will be closed during the day, so there will be no vehicular traffic at all coming down this bus loop during the school day. And so children can get from the main building over to the K through 3 play area, and then for the overflow, they can run down and the open fields are co-located. What we do have dashed, just to remind everybody of some of our initial kind of programmatic asks and requests, we are showing dashed areas of 2 play field locations that work for the future of the school. So those things need to be graded out in such a fashion that it will work. So that's what's really kind of holding us to some of these areas, is that grading. We know that in the future we need those relatively flat areas so that you can build upon your current athletics. The other restrictions that have been requested of us from not only it's kind of a tree issue, a grading issue, and then therefore everything leads to cost. But the existing courtyard of the school has a lot of grade and trees and ledge in there. So those areas are not being touched. So we're removing the building around there, and we've been requested to keep that intact we're providing one 5% universally accessible pathway that brings you through there. So these are our no touchy zones that we've been working with. In option B, what we wanted to do, we were actually inspired, I think it was Josh that you had sent over that, you did that sketch in our previous meeting. What if the bus loop peels further away from the face of the building and allows us to get through the K through 3 play area to be on the same side of the bus loop, so that students don't cross over any vehicular traffic in order to get to their play area. So that's what this scheme does. The play area is a little bit smaller in this one, just because we are restricted with meeting existing grades. We have 100-foot wetland setback that is down in this, you start to see that green edge, thank you, right there. We're also looking at detention areas, a lot of there's just a lot of pressures on the site that we have, but we did want to explore this so that that peels this away. It allows the K-3 play area to be on the same side as the school, but to get to the actual open fields, you would have to cross the bus loop and vehicular circulation there. So that was the difference in this scheme. Very similarly, the pre-K play area stays in the same location, but it's separated from proposed parking from the bus loop and other pieces of vehicular circulation. So we were able to kind of sneak that proposed parking in there. In this scheme, we were able to maintain quite a lot of parking, but it did feel that option B was prioritizing parking over play and certain access points. So both of these schemes were presented to folks at the school. We had a very lively, wonderful debate about it, and everyone chose to go with option A as the path forward. So if we go to the next slide, we did want to talk about this drawing that was sent out. We looked at it. This one actually inspired us to kind of move that bus loop a bit to get the playground on the same side as the school, but we're not able to do all of the grading, no touching of certain areas, get additional parking, and maintain those spaces for the proposed future fields in this scenario. So we liked the idea, but we needed to kind of look at some of the edges a little bit more detail with the grading that really kind of drove us to the next slide, which is where we ended up. So this is modifications to concept A that we just showed you momentarily ago. So we have the playground in the location where it was previously parking. This is now it's still a great sized playground for your K-3 students. You see in the kind of darker green, the two rectangles, those are your future fields. So those are the areas that we're holding to be less than a 2% slope across. So the grading is there. The pre-K at number 4 stays in the same location. And we were able to work together with the Brennan team to really try to squeeze in as many parking spaces as we can in this scenario. So we do have about 127 spaces here. I think the previous scheme in the first, from SD, it was like 126. So we did a good job to try to fit everybody in, but you can see in two of where it says 100-foot wetland setback, that kind of the white lines that define kind of a space there, that is one detention basin, and then there's another. So these are two areas where, again, the grading and the site, the stormwater, our wetland setback, these are some restricted areas. So this is where we're trying to work our way around. From the last conversation, we did put a full-size basketball court in, which we had in the previous, original scheme anyways. It's in this location because it is a flat location. The site is naturally flat there based on our new grading, and it co-locates it with your future athletics. So it is a little bit further away from the actual playground, but this is where it fits best on the site without impacting some of these other areas that we were kind of told to steer clear from. And then from the cost implications, we also wanted to make sure that we're looking at this, solving the problems that the desires that have been put forth to us from the group, from the SD scheme, but at the same time we wanted to be very cognizant of cost. So by putting the basketball court in this location, if that is still desired in the program, it has very minimal impact on any sort of additional cost or anything because it's already going to be flat in that area. So if we go to the next slide, it highlights the proposed circulation a little bit more. So what you see in the magenta colors, these are one-way vehicular access points. This is pretty much what we had all along. What you see now in the cyan is that when you come into our main parking lot, we are two-way. So this changes things. So people will drive in, they'll park in that parking lot, they will go back out. the way Phil is just showing us. So they will go back out and head down to Tiger Drive from there. That is a change. The Tiger Drive, these other things were always, you know, in the Cyan here were always two-way, but coming into that parking lot and coming back out, that is a vehicular circulation change that we have been working through with the whole team. And if we have questions about that, we can get into that. Chris Emilius is on the call too, and we've all been kind of looking at this and making sure that things are still very safe. So if we go to the next slide, I think it shows you the bus circulation route, which is very clear. And so this bus circulation has not changed from the original scheme that we had. So that area in front of the school will be gated off during the day when there's not buses coming in there. So they will be no vehicular traffic flowing across that portion of the site during the day. So students and recess faculty members will be able to get students safely over to the playground without crossing any vehicular traffic during the school day. And I think with that, I will open it up to questions and comments. And we're happy to discuss whatever you'd like.
Josh?
Thank you. Great presentation. Couple quick questions. Do you want me to just give you all the questions or just do one at a time? Which is easier for you?
I don't know, Josh. Well, you want to rapid fire? We'll start with,
Why don't we, let's do one at a time.
All right, one at a time.
oh yeah, don't make me remember the questions. Okay.
And they're not all for you. Some of these are pretty straightforward though.
Okay.
On the gate, I just want to make sure that the fire department has kind of blessed that.
Yeah, we'll have to confirm they're good with that.
Yeah, because we've looked at before. It depends on the chief. I've had some chiefs tell me you can put it up. Just know that if I need to, I'm going to drive through it. So
yeah. Which we want them to do. If they need to, please drive through the gate.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm assuming we'll get that response. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. The other one, pretty just thinking about snow removal. So planned south of the K-3 playground. Just a thought, you may want to try to sweep that left a little easier for a couple of reasons. One, for the buses, but I'm thinking snow removal. If we don't, Justin's crew is probably ended up pushing that into your retention area. So if you give them a little smoother left-hand turn, they'll be able to scoop that snow and not push it directly into the wetlands. So I think the primary, just if and when folks ask the building committee, and they may never, but if they ever do, why we have a bus loop in between the school and the playground, I think what I'm hearing is the answer. There's several answers, but really it sounds like it's the fields, because if we want to have those play fields, we don't really have a choice but to keep the bus loop out of there. Cost.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
it's grading for those fields. If you don't want the fields, things change. But we have to hold those. You can see the edges are really they're squeezed in there. It's grading for the fields.
All right, awesome. And Maynard, as we have seen many times over the years, values their fields quite a bit. So that's a good reason to give. And then lastly, real quick, it's a question for Brian and folks at MPS. The basketball court, I understand why you're putting it over there. I think it's going to be a challenge from a playground supervision standpoint. It's a long ways away from the playground, and you're going to have some kids that want to go straight to the basketball court and others are going to want to stay at the playground. It's really just a question for MPS. It doesn't have to be answered today. It's something to think about. That's all. Thanks.
I think it's a good point, Josh, too. I think, we can, if anybody has strong feedback on it today, that's really helpful. If not, I think what we did is we found a place to fit it in. It's already in the budget. So if we want to, if we make a decision about it today, great. If not, Chris, Phil, let me know. But if we carry that through, and look at it again in 60% CDs, I think that's okay. So I think we wanted to make sure it fit. The idea of putting it there was also because what we heard is that students will be playing down in the lower field area as well. Lower, it's only 3-foot difference, but down in that lower area during recess anyways. So maybe co-locating it there, but we do recognize that it's just, it's not as convenient as it was in the previous scheme.
It could be an ad alt later on too, if that's desirable.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the team for really hearing sort of the logistical concerns of where the playground, and it has shifted from behind the building to the side of the building, to really put the time and energy into making it something that I think will really serve the community well for 50 years. It's in terms of logistics, it's right outside the front door, and gating off that road takes away one of the big concerns of how do we get there. And I really love the fact that you've sort of kept in mind the fields. So even thinking ahead as as we want kids to spend more time outside and play and whatnot, that those are right down the hill, if you will, from there. And the basketball court, I think that's a conversation to have, but I understand why you have it there. And it makes a lot of sense why it's there. So I wouldn't even push back. I just want to thank you. I think it was not an easy task to revise once it's kind of settled, and you guys did a phenomenal job with taking all the feedback, so thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
Ken?
Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right, thank you for the presentation. A question I had was about how this works in year one when the existing school is still there. And yeah, I guess that's first question, and then if I have another one, I'll come back at the end of the line.
Yeah. Chris,
So-
you want to jump into? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in, Ken. That's a good question. We're working out a logistics plan, right? We had a good idea when we started through this schematic design, but now we're really getting into a logistics plan. Because one of the things we want to do is work with Brian, Rob, and their staff on how this works when the school's being built, the existing buildings being, still in function, full use, et cetera. And then when the new school gets occupied, that existing school and area needs to be taken by the contractor. So things like how do we encounter maybe a majority, if not all the parents do drop off initially and the buses. Maybe there's a sequencing of timing, et cetera. So we're working on a plan for that to make sure. Because first and foremost, we've got to operate them both in a safe and secure manner simultaneously for a couple of years, right? When the new one's being built, and then once the new one's occupied, when the old one's being torn down. The nice thing is once the new school's finished, we'll have the summer to get a good start on getting that old one down. But there still will be some logistics of getting students to and from the new school until the parking areas and playfields are finished. So that'll be coming up. That's going to be part of one of the upcoming submissions and how we work that out. We're going to sit down with Rob, Brian, and their staff to go through it once we have an initial plan.
Right now, we're looking at going around, having both the buses and the parents come around the back of the new building using that circular road while we take the old building down. So that might be for a couple of months. We work out something where it's 24 feet wide behind the new building. So we can put the bus and the parents side by side and split them as they come around the corner of the building as an initial thought.
Ken, did you have more questions or no? Mary?
Yeah, just a couple. Can you walk through again the pedestrian walkways of how that's gonna work?
Yes, if you go, yeah, great, thank you. Okay. Much of this has not changed. So hard when I don't have the cursor. The way that the students, yes, Phil, they were
Okay.
always coming in this way.
Right.
That has not changed. So they have one crossing right there, and then they're on the same side as the school. So
Okay.
that's where the pedestrians will come in. They can go right to pre-K. They can come right to the face of the school. That is no different, Mary, than what we had from the circulation standpoint, pedestrian standpoint in the initial set of drawings. What we do if we want to go kind of clockwise out, what we've done at number 2 at the main plaza when you leave, you cross the bus lane, and then you have this is the multimodal path that goes parallel to the bus lane and brings you back to the other direction, Phil. Yes. So, and then that brings you out. And again, this is pretty much the same way that we had it before. So, that's really critical. What we don't have, what is different here, and is that the bike path is not on the roadway. It was previously at the level, same level as the vehicles coming in, because it was a one-way. Previously, when you came in, it was 2 lanes in one direction from Tiger Drive. So we were able to have a bike lane on the same elevation as the vehicles moving in that direction. It's different now. So because we're 2-way, for that portion of the entry, we've moved the bikes onto this multimodal path. So the bikes, right, exactly. There's lots of options for bikes, but we're making that sidewalk. It's wider, it'll be striped, so there's pedestrians on one side and bikes on the other.
And you feel like that'll be safe?
That's very typical of what the way bike paths work in all sorts of areas. I mean, I granted I'm in the city, but this is what we do. This is kind of the standard way right now. If you can't have the bike lane down on the street because it's 2 directions, we don't want to do that. So then the bikes, this is actually safer for the kids of this age. They'll get used to being on a bike path. They'll get used to behaving the rules of the road, but they're limited in their kind of potential interactions with vehicles. So it takes the bikes completely off of that, which again, for this age group is a good way for them to get used to, kind of biking in more of a public realm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Two-way
And then-
circulation is a significant difference from what we have now at the DD level. And when the pre-K parents come in, they'll have to be signed to make that left-hand turn into the parking lot next to the pre-K playground. No, further up right there, Phil, yeah. And then the remaining parents, K through 3, will go around and around the full building like that. So that's a bit of a change, and the pre-K parents and pickup will just need to recognize that they need to get off the main drive, if you will, into that parking lot to pick the children up and drop them off.
Okay, all right, thank you. A couple more if I could. So the playground for the new playground, is that all going to be fenced in, all the full?
We have it fenced right now, yes.
Yes.
And that's something that we can, discuss if that's, but
Okay.
right now it's all fenced.
Great. And as what I'd like to see actually is more security between that parking lot now and the playground. God forbid a car goes out of control. The cement
We have
pillars?
bollards. Yes, we have those, Mary, in the drawing. We have impact bollards in both
Perfect.
locations, both at where the vehicles right there,
Yep.
impact bollards, and then also in number 7 parking lot. As parents are coming in, we have them ringing the edge of the pre-K also.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then lastly, I know Frank was very concerned about just the topography and the ledge and that for that area. Has that been addressed? Are we okay
We're
with
not
that?
getting into that. That's why we are not, we're not impacting ledge or
Okay.
anything. This is, so we're good, Mary.
Okay,
We've
great.
flipped
Excellent.
it in
Thank you.
here and there, and we've kept our restrictions where we were previously restricted.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Nick?
Yeah, it came up earlier. We're talking about 24-foot roads. The bus route through the front of the school, I scaled the drawing. It's also 24 feet. Does it have to be for a single lane, single direction bus route still be 24? Is that like a fire department or fire truck
Yes.
size?
Yes,
Yeah.
so if there
Oh,
are
man.
buses that are queued up, the fire trucks can still get by.
It seems like such a waste of real estate.
They
Okay.
also need it to deploy for their, their outriggers and stuff. So yeah, we agree. But I think, for the front of the school, getting the fire trucks as close as possible and be able to like set up, we'll fight different battles on that one, Nick.
Yeah. Okay. I was just asking since it was one lane and really kind of one vehicle, but there's rules. All right. Second quick thing, the 2 fields. I see your you're fighting grade a little bit, trying to get those across there. The right hand corner of the small field like dips off.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider maybe we have to do something for retaining walls up against the incoming road to just help get you maybe a little bit lower to not fight the grade at the other end? And then it also acts as a way that the balls leaving the field or something, hit something and don't go right across the street. Kids hit the wall and not run across the street, just as a way to think about it. I mean, retaining walls do cost money, but I'd rather maybe have something at the high end, basketball court over to around the bend, than say losing things down, running away from us at the other end on the downhill side.
I'll let
Yeah, we
Chris
can look at it.
respond to that.
Yeah, we can look at it, Nick. Again, so this is design development. This is the latest scheme. We'll flush it out. We'll talk with the building and site subcommittee again to address those concerns. One option could be, if our next estimate's even better, maybe we put some chain link fencing around that turn by the field to do just that, right? Keep balls in, keep kids in, etc.
That's an easy add alternate if you want to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Rob Rudlow.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you everybody for all the hard work. We know that we came at you guys with some changes, and we do think for the future it's much better. I also appreciate the fact that everybody is taking their time in order to make sure that at the very end of this, it's going to be an amazing addition to the Maynard town. And I think everybody from the community, all the way through just the students and everybody else, is just going to enjoy it. So I congratulate everybody. Please understand, I guess, from my comprehension, is that everything, of course, is done in phases, and fields and future fields, is from what I'm hearing, is there's always a timeline for those. And as you begin and you enter school in 2028 or something of that nature, that certain other things may not be of total completion, such as the possibility of fields, because they take a year or so to grow in, if I'm correct. So it's just, we have a lot of work to do from now till that time, not only informing and changing behavioral attitudes of the community on how to enter and exit, but also for everybody else that's involved in it, of what they're going to actually have and not have. When we did visit the school in Ludlow, they were still growing in part of their fields and everything after being there for a period of time. So everybody does have to understand it is a phase-in project, if I'm correct, and I may be wrong, so please let me know.
Correct, Rob.
You're correct.
Take about a year, at least one growing season, if not two, depending on the extent.
Charles. Oh, you muted, Charles?
I think he's muted.
You're still muted, Charles.
Gee, that was really, I had something great to say too, and no one heard it. I'm a non-voting member, but I thought I'd throw my 2 cents worth in. I've been involved in my past life and very intimately in a couple of school constructions. And the mistake we made in our first one was not involving the fire chief and the fire department from the very beginning. And I know Josh mentioned how important this is. And I just want to emphasize, we learned our lesson with the second school we did, that at the last minute, certain things have come up with patterns, traffic patterns, other kinds of things. So I think it's just very important. We have a wonderful fire chief, Angela Lawless, and I hope she's involved with some of these things so she knows the patterns and what's happening.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we met with her actually last week, but yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, great. And she's on board.
Yes. Well, no, we gotta kind of advance that conversation on this site design change, but yeah.
Better now than,
100%. Yep.
Thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And Lynn, this is another one for yourself and Brennan as well. So that staring at the intersection Tiger Drive and that drive to the school on the north side of the plan. And I'm sure you looked at it, so I'm curious about your thoughts of switching that main play area and I'll say the staff parking lot, so that north side of the loop remains one way, and then it's the south side that becomes two-way. Yeah. So when you looked at that scenario, what did that do for you? What problems did that create?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't understand. I'm not
So,
sure I understand your question.
Ken, can you go back to the area you're referring
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, let me try to simplify it. So we have the 1 to 3 playground, sort of in the, I'll say the lower right, and then there's a parking lot adjacent to it. If those two are flipped, then the two-way portion of the road is the spur on the south that goes out to Tiger Drive, as opposed to introducing two-way traffic on the north spur. And I think I'm still on that first year when the existing building is there. And having that south side be two-way, it seems to open some things up and simplify the intersection on the north of the view here.
The layout of the playground is a little more challenging if it's long and skinny. And it's kind of, we've always, these pieces, we were trying to change as little as possible. And these pieces have always been vetted, with the greater, the fire truck and police and stuff as being one way there. So I am trying to remember. I feel like there was a point where we looked at this way back in SD coming in the opposite direction, and maybe the team can help me remember, but that was sort of, I think we were thinking that was kind of sacred like vehicular circulation there is one way in that direction.
Well,
Yeah.
the playground is not going to, can't go in the two areas where the two dark green blots are. That's we'll call sacred land in there. See, the playground couldn't fit to your left, Phil. Yep, and up. There you go, right there. That's, if you look at existing condition plan, that whole area cannot be touched. So you couldn't put a playground where you couldn't switch the playground in the parking lot and make the playground work.
Yeah.
I think we're getting at, Ken.
Yeah, and I think Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. I think one of the big drivers of that was having a one-way for the parents drop off, and then the bus is exiting, and everybody kind of smoothly coming out in the same direction, as opposed to now getting into a two-way in that location with a lot of congestion. I think that was one of the things we looked at. Just trying to get everybody back out of the site in the same direction in a smooth manner.
I mean, if I had my complete druthers, we'd still be circulating one way around the whole site. But with the latest request, we weren't able to do that, and so we have the two-way for that section of entering. But if you flipped it, you'd also have I think the buses would be opening on the wrong side too. If the buses are going the opposite way, they have to open to the right.
Ken, I know you're not proposing that, but I think I think the big thing is getting the buses and the parents to come out in the same direction there. Because we do anticipate quite a lot of queuing around the backside of the school. So I think that was a big driver, because I know that this is like when you're like, well, back in 2022, we looked at, we explored all different ways of like the vehicular community, like a vehicular circulation throughout the site. And we can go back to that, but
behind the school.
Yeah.
And right now, with the pre-K parking lot and coming out to the circulation road, there's about 33 cars that can fit in queue there before they would block the pre-K parents exiting. I think that'll be fine, 33 vehicles.
Okay, Josh.
Yep, very quickly. So two quick comments. Plan north, just above the basketball court, that crosswalk that comes from parent parking. If you're not already thinking about it, I would recommend a raised table there. Okay, good. The other one, and this is just personal taste, but I hate bollards. I like what they do, but I find them visually not so tasteful. especially where it's going to be right, you know, between the playground and the plaza. I might suggest some of the heavy duty anchored planters as an alternative. Obviously, we want to stop vehicles, but if it looks a little less industrial, it might be well served in that area. Just a thought, though.
We'll show you some nice bollards too, Josh, just because they take up less space, but we're not thinking like yellow painted concrete filled bollards. Like
Aw.
we'll show you some decent options, but I agree. Typically we don't do them, but we are tight on space, but it's a good point. We'll vet that with everybody as we go forward.
Thank you.
Give it the National Grid special, like they wrap the Transformers.
Yeah.
It's our favorite.
I thought it was going to look like Target when we came in. Be cool.
Mary?
Yeah, so just real quick, so financially, what does this do? Since we don't have to worry about the ledge and all of that, is this totally within the same budget, or are we adding anything, or?
So we have the cost estimators price out this change, and the reconciled cost is an add of 29K. We're not 100% sure that that's reality, to be honest with you. In our opinion, we kind of feel like we're just moving things around. We're not concerned about subsurface conditions. So, you know, our current reconciled estimate carries these spaces that we're referring to, right? We got a pre-K playground, we got a K-3 playground, we got, you know, this parking lot here. It just so happens to be over here, and you know, so we got a reconciled estimate that has these features, basketball court. So we feel good that this is just moving things around.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
We're spend $29,000 on better signs, I think,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So if there aren't any more questions, it would be good to get the building committee, you know, vote of approval on this change, and kind of, you know, because the idea is this will be, you know, the rendered site plan that we present at the community forum and all that stuff.
So moved.
Moved as going forward with option A as presented. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Perfect.
I can second that. I like this.
Wow, I never even got to ask for a motion. This is great.
Thought you're
Wow.
taking a nap, Jerry.
I was thinking about that. All right, so let's go with the vote. Here we go. Roll call. Justin. Yeah. Chris.
Yes.
Thank you. Greg. Greg's still on?
He abandoned us.
He did, huh?
Yes.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think he had another meeting to go to. Mary.
Yes.
Hillary, not on. Brian.
Yes.
You're here this time. Good. Mike Stevens, I know, is not on. Rob.
1000% yes.
Thank you. Jennifer, no. Wayne, no. I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
1001% yes.
Oh. Ken.
Yes.
Perfect. Josh.
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous. Very good. Thank you, folks.
All right. Thanks,
That
guys.
was good. Back to you, Phil.
Okay, Chris, I think this is
Everyone.
wraps up design update. Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
You too.
You too.
All right, so project design updates. Design development coordination is still ongoing. The design team continues to coordinate amongst ourselves and our vendors. You know, the building structure and building systems and site to flush out, you know, the design as presented in schematic. We are continuing with, you know, structural calculations as part of structural design, framing plans. The building system design and loads are being fine-tuned. We've got equipment selections taking place as part of that design. Code compliance and LEED Gold compliance is being integrated into everything. We do have an energy model that has come along, and I can share some of that with you as well as part of our working group. As Phil mentioned earlier, with the ad service, as part of the design and development process, we've performed additional borings and test pits to get, you know, a further understanding of what the makeup of the soils are in the areas that are planned to be developed. With that, The environmental engineer was out there to take samples of those soils to further understand that there is no contaminated soils and make sure we are not caught as a surprise, especially earlier on with some of the, the indications that there may be fill and suspect soils. We do have both reports that have come back, and I believe Phil shared those with you. As far as the geotech report goes, no new findings. We actually think we've discovered that there might be less ledge than originally anticipated, so we're working that into our early site package quantities. The environmental report found that there are no reportable conditions of suspect or contaminated soils, anything of that nature. So all that's good. We've done our due diligence. MSBA requires us to do the due diligence, and we've gone there. So design development will continue. We've got a submission coming up in about 3 weeks. I think Mark had mentioned, or maybe Matt previously, how do we help coordinate? And some of that's through the software and clash detection, making sure that, our mechanical designer isn't putting ducts where steel structure is, et cetera. So that's an ongoing process that usually helps cut down on the work that the contractor has and the changes that he's looking for. So that's all good. We're continuing that process. Once we've submitted on May 20th, we'll roll right into the 60%, which is continuing to fine tune and detail our design development process. And we'll continue on with that. At the last meeting, we talked briefly about the working group meetings and the status and what we've discussed. Just to kind of go back, touch back a little bit on some of that. The security and safety meeting was really good. I believe Jerry was part of that. We had the fire chief, the police chief, Rob, and some of the other administration team was there. We presented the basis of design, discussed along with our security consultant, the gatekeeping, how people are going to enter and exit the school, the security camera systems, where to put them, play areas, parking areas around the perimeter building, and certainly in all the public spaces. And all of that has been met with positive confirmation. So we're going to proceed on that basis. We did get a comment. I think Greg may have asked when we can share that with school committee, et cetera. So at some point, we can certainly do that. Most communities would recommend that be done in executive session or in another format so that information is not public, but yet the community stakeholders are informed and are satisfied with the direction we're taking. So I think everything there is going well. The sustainability, geothermal system and PV components. So we are going with a full, ground source heat pump system. Our geothermal consultant has determined the number of bores, well field bores, to be about 70. However, we feel that once we finalize the building loads, which should be happening any day now, we can possibly reduce some of those bores, thereby again saving some more money in the design and making sure we have a conservative number to meet our conditions. So that's going well. We are engaging the town's PV consultant, Beth Greenblatt, and I actually had a conversation with her today about the PV system, including the structure for the PVs on any parking area, carports, to support some of the additional stuff in addition to the roof. So we're going to be engaging some of the consultants to talk further with them about that. We talked about the LEED Gold checklist and what it's going to take to get there. We talked about the capabilities for the geothermal system for the heating and cooling. We're using a 2-pipe system for the chilled beams for heating and cooling, and a 4-pipe system to the main heating plants. So that's ongoing. The mechanical engineers and electrical engineers are, selecting their equipment to meet those goals. We did talk with Justin. One of the things he's concerned with is using manufacturers that are not going to be going out of business soon, right? So we want manufacturers that have been around, that have been proven, so that as these systems are maintained, et cetera, if they need parts, those parts are still available. There are still people to maintain them 20, 30 years down the road. So the design is going to be based on that as well. We will coordinate that with Jeff, and we'll certainly have another meeting with the sustainability working group to, once, we get out of, get towards the end or out of the design development, to get into the detail of the system so people can be informed. We talked about the controls for everything, occupancy, sensor controls for the and thermostats for, say, the heating and cooling system, as well the lighting system, daylight harvesting, etc. We talked about ventilation design for sustainability, making sure we are above code and we have the appropriate filters, MERV 13 or better, in the system. So should we encounter another COVID type scenario, we are able to meet those demands. I can tell you that right now, the current mechanical system design is looking to achieve 30% more efficiency than code requirements at a minimum. We do have our design development report. I haven't gone through it. It was turned over, I believe, yesterday, so we're going through that. We are currently achieving an EUI, energy use intensity, of just under 23 EUI. So that's very good. We need 25 or better to meet Eversource's demands. So we're going to be talking with them, and the fact that we are meeting their demands to get those incentives. I think we were looking at possibly 1.2 million incentives for the project. So that's ongoing. That seems to be in a good spot as well. And then with the building and site committee, we talked about the building. There were some minor building changes. We talked about the toilet rooms and the shower requirement under the new code. We did confirm that there's been some feedback from other consultants, etc. But we did consult with not only but another building code consultant, and our plumbing engineer reached out to the state plumbing board. All confirmed that what we have is what's required. Although there may be some other interpretations, we want to make sure that as we permit this thing, all of a sudden we don't have the town's plumbing inspector said, "Oh, hey, by the way, didn't you know that you need 2 showers?" And now we've got to scramble to get that working. We want to make sure we've got what we need. And it is an improvement to the project. It is in our current budget, so we're in good shape there. Now that we have direction on the alternate play area location, we're going to proceed with that. We've got to prepare our drainage calculations for the design development submittal. Chris and his team, Brennan, the civil engineer, are going to be meeting and discussing these with the planning board and the conservation board to get site plan approval and conservation approval. We did have a meeting with Bill Nemser and Julia and Steve, I forget his last name, but Maynard's municipal operations team. We did explain to them not only what was going on at the site, the potential of this change, but also the early site package. We forwarded them the early site plan that would kind of outline the scope of work. Everybody seemed to be fine with that. There are no approvals required. It'll be removal of the ledge, removal of trees, installation of wells, and then the preparation for the initial access road that goes around the existing building to the back, as well as the building footprint. The goal is to get this work done over the summer and early fall. And then once we have a building contractor on board, they're ready to go. They come in, the building pad is pretty much done. They start excavating for foundations. There is no worries about, hey, we got to take down trees. We got to start prepping for this and that, right? So they're moving pretty good. We've done that on a number of jobs. I've got that going on another job out here in the western part of the state, Holyoke. Fontaine Brothers, who's a contractor, was just ecstatic that they're able to come in and get going right off the bat, and it showed in their bid package. So we're hopeful that we'll get the same results from Maynard as well. We are now getting into some of the follow-up district meetings. We're going to be meeting with Rob and his team, school facilities, and Brian, I'll reach out to you to talk about when we have a replacement for Bob Savoy. We'll get that going. Some of the specialty departments like music, PE, special education, etc. We have reached out to food service. I understand there's a new food service group. We sent them the meeting notes from the previous meeting, want them to get up to speed, and then we're going to have a meeting with them probably late this week, early next week, to just verify that everything that they need in the kitchen is there and go through that process. And then lastly, our submissions on 520, and then we're going to roll right into the 60%. So things are continuing to happen. things are looking good. We feel confident that what we have for our submission will be fine for MSBA, gives them more than what they need. It'll meet their submission checklist, et cetera. Any questions?
Josh?
Thank you for the update, Chris. Appreciate it. I'm going to make a comment on something that I'd actually prefer not to have a response from anybody on, especially in this meeting, but I want to just put it out there. And it's more for Brian, I think, than anyone. Security cameras in the parking lots is a little unusual in my experience in an elementary school. I'm not going to step on the police chief's toes at all on that one. But I do want to just raise it as something that, while it might be nice to have for security purposes, it may raise parity concerns with respect to Fowler and the high school. So just food for thought. And again, please don't respond tonight or at any time. I just leave it to you.
Ken?
Hey, thanks, Bill. Chris, thanks for the update. And I know you addressed this previously, but can you remind me when we might have a chance to see the drawings in anticipation of putting a vote on them on the 20th?
Ken, we can get you a link to the latest. I'll check with my team.
All right.
And we can send out a link to those drawings so that prior to the 20th, we can get that vote. Do we have a meeting before then, Phil, scheduled?
No, the next meeting is the 20th.
Okay. Very good. So yeah, Ken, we'll get those. I believe there was a link sent out for the estimate set. So that, and if there hasn't, the DD submission will be that and then some, right? Because we've continued to work on them. So let me get that in my notes and we'll get a linked out to everybody.
And you can tell me, and then Jerry, I guess this is for you as well. This seems like a place where we might be able to generate some input, and it is, you're going back to MSBA in July with the 60%. And just thinking about what's a good way to get input from the committee, from the community, and have that incorporated, and probably not before May 20th, but maybe the better window is between the 20th and July, but that's a question.
So the answer is yes, and that doesn't make me concerned that, we're missing input for this DD submission. I think it will be fine. Okay, any other questions?
The last set that was sent out was the March 21st set. Is that what we're looking at still?
Right, so that the March 21st. So yeah, that would have been the cost estimate set, right, Chris?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So just a quick comment. So we'll get a new set soon, as Chris has indicated. And I agree with Phil that I think the timing between the 20th when we submit to MSBA and then again in July, so we've got time, end of May, one or two, we can have more meetings. We have a couple of meetings in June if we need to. Because then we need to just be cautious during the summer. We end up with vacation time in July and August, so not always great to try to get a quorum. But yeah, there's time between the 20th of May and July, so got enough room for a couple of meetings if need be, depending on how the progress moves. Is there anything else, Phil? Oh, I know. Next dates, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You get the slide up.
Yeah, so new business. I don't know if there's any new business is the next agenda item.
I don't think so. I think the business is the schedule at this point.
Yeah. So next meeting date. So when we last met, and we kind of talked about pushing off the previous date for the community forum, we landed on a revised date of Monday, May 13th. So 2 weeks from today. What I have on the slide here in terms of format, hybrid at town hall, that's where we landed when we were initially discussing having this community forum. And I'm assuming it's still kind of the way we want to go. So it would be the project team at the town hall, and it would be hybrid. The thought is it starts at 7. So, I mean, to go to Mary's initial question, you know, our plan is we move forward with it. We understand it was a thing that the building committee felt was very appropriate. And so, move forward with it in a couple weeks.
Okay.
And the thought is, in terms of format of the presentation, not drastically different than our last community forums in terms of presenters. The thought is, you know, kind of Jerry opens it up as building committee chair, kind of speaks to kind of the building committee effort behind the scenes, if you will. And then it goes and potentially it transitions into Brian. We'll figure out that, but and then from Jerry and Brian, it'll go to me for schedule update, budget update, and then over to Chris for design update. Mary, you got a question?
Yeah, no, it wasn't about the forum, it was about the 20th. I just wanted everybody to, because Jerry, you had made that meeting at 12 noon. So it's a little atypical, so just wanted to.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, hold on, let's go back. So now we're talking about the May 20th building committee
Correct,
meeting?
yes, yeah,
Correct.
And we
Yes.
said noontime on that?
correct.
Yes, because
Yeah.
we
Okay.
went back and forth as to who, because that's also, that night is town meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
So we can't do it, and we went back and forth, could do 8 or noon or what, and the majority could make noontime, so
Yeah.
that was what we agreed on.
Okay,
Thank you for reminding me, Mary.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you,
I had
Mary.
I had the 20th, but I didn't write down noon. Guess I would have
Yeah,
been
so-
late.
There's an invite out there already that has to be amended. That's all.
Yeah, we'll
Yep.
make sure that happens. Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, did you raise your hand?
No, I was just gonna point out the same thing that Mary pointed out. I don't know when I'm gonna get my town meeting nap in, but I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it
I have to drink extra coffee that day.
out.
We just sleep during the town meeting. I mean, nobody will
Oh,
notice.
I know.
I knew
You
that
can
was
get the
coming.
special glasses that
I-
make your eyeballs look like they're open.
I hope it's quick. But yeah, that was, I had the same comment as Mary, that's all.
All right, good, perfect. Any other questions from anybody on the committee? And I do not believe we have any members of the public, at least my last count. Phil, can you see the full list? I didn't see anybody that
Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody.
wasn't, okay, perfect. So we have no questions from the public. I would certainly entertain a motion to adjourn if there are no other questions or issues.
I can make that motion.
Thank you, Mary. Would it be a second?
Second,
Perfect. Good, Brian. Thank you. Roll call. Justin's not here. Chris,
Yes.
Greg slipped out. Mary,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
Rob. Oh, maybe
Said
Rob
yes,
was-
but he's muted. I saw his lips move.
Rob was the only one getting his exercise in too.
I am. I'm getting both things done.
Hey, when are you
This
gonna
is-
when are you gonna have pancakes with the principal?
Oh, it's coming soon. Coming soon.
That's all I'm hearing about these days.
We had a fire truck in the parking lot today.
Oh my God. Oh, she's gonna be mad she missed it.
Yep.
After he finishes walking off the last set of pancakes, right?
Oh, thank you.
Ooh. Let me continue before this digresses too far. We don't get done here. I see Jennifer Wayne not here. I am a yes. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Josh.
Yes.
I'll go down. I think, is Charles still on? No. Rob Savoy, Katie's not, Gavin's not. That's it. Unanimous. Meeting
Thank
is
you.
officially adjourned. Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
folks.
Have a great night,
Thank you,
guys.
guys. Have a great night.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks,